So, ladies and gentlemen, in the history of my life, many people know that I'm a big pinball fan. I've been playing pinball machines since I'm 5 or 6 years of age, and I'm 54 now. So you might as well say I've spent a half century enjoying the legend, the noise, the sound, the draw of the pinball machine. And a lot of people ask me, just in generalization, what, in your opinion, is the greatest pinball machine of all time? It's a very easy answer and probably one of the best electronic games of all time. And we're going to be talking about the Twilight Zone wide body pinball game that was based on the TV series by Rod Serling of the same name. Now, it was designed by the very, very talented Pat Lawler. It was released in 1993 by Midway under the Bally label. Now, the game is part of the WMS's Super Pin line of wide body games, alongside such stellar tabletops as Star Trek The Next Generation and Indiana Jones The Pinball Adventure. Now, I first started playing this game regularly at a mafia biker bar in Eel River Crossing, New Brunswick, mostly before I was going to be covering the local amateur boxing club, Eel River Crossing Olympic, run by my cousin Lorenzo Savoy. And I know that this bar was a biker bar because when you have nearly 4,000 bikes parked outside in a given week, it's probably a biker's bar. Now, the pinball machine is very, very dramatic, very loud, very intense. The whole design, from the back glass to the play area, has massive references to the Twilight Zone series and much of the legends. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the look of itself. It came out a little bit after the huge success of the Adams Family pinball machine, and when Midway gave Lawler full creative control over the design of the next game. Now, this is a very, very complex machine, very similar to a multi-tiered video game. It has many special features. It has a working gumball machine which holds three balls and can receive dispense during play, a working to 12-hour analog clock that can display the current time and function, a power ball, a white ceramic ball which is lighter than the other steel balls in the machine and unaffected by magnets, and a power field, which is a triangular mini play field whose underside contains magnets that propels the ball. Now, only 15,235 of these were made, and I played at least three or four of the ones that ended up in New Brunswick. Now, because the layout is a heavy tribute to Twilight Zone, there's many features in here. Too many to talk in one podcast. But there's multi-ball, fast luck, multi-ball, Powerball Mania. It has something called the Battle of Power, which is a right-way ramp feature. The Camera, Greed, Hitchhiker. Again, the tremendous gameplay. But the connections to the TV series, there's at least 15 to 40 episodes that are kind of referred to in the gameplay. Mostly The Living Doll, The Fever, Prime Mover, Time Enough at Last, Uncle Simon, Brain Center, Whipples, Static, The Invaders, A Most Unusual Camera. Now, there is a digital version of this for several platforms, but you have to play the game itself to get the full feature. Now, I've seen the refurbished versions of the game valued upward between $15,000 and $30,000. You could probably find a good used one for 5,000. I'm hoping anybody that listens to my podcast will buy one for me and just give it to me as a thank you. It can be delivered to my home office in Canterbury. But again, the visualization of the whole game and production, again, it's not made for kids like under the age of 15. It's more for the older fans of the show. Now, music is provided by Chris Bramder, and the underrated voice actor Tim Kitzrow plays Rod Serling's voice in the game. I don't know if the estate, which was run by Rod Serling's wife, was approached for some audio clips of Rod. I don't think so because it'd be very difficult to get the full comments. But you can play this game for hours and hours and hours and not be able to finish it. And like I said, it's a challenging pinball machine. You're not going to get bored, but volume control is important because when you play the game more successfully, that's where I was getting complaints at this bar because I was getting to the higher levels all the time. And what it does, it gets louder because the multi-ball feature. It is not a quiet game. This was made for to be played at arcades and to draw people in. And how it was in the 1990s, especially for the what they call the rebirth of the digital pinball machines, it had to be noisy enough to draw the attention. Now, I don't know if there's ever been Twilight Zone competitions for the other video games, but again, like I said, a very special pinball machine. If you're a Rod Serling fan, a Twilight Zone fan, and one of my buddies joked years ago they should try to make a night gallery pinball machine. And I said, listen, you're asking for too much. We have one of the greatest pinball machines, the greatest games ever, that's thematic to the Twilight Zone. Now, I would suggest going on YouTube and seeing some gameplay tutorials. It's quite interesting. And also, there's some videos about people that have refurbished some of the models. I think in the early 2010s, there was a whole bunch of tutorials. And I know most of the major gaming locations in the States have Twilight Zone copies. I think at least 10,000 copies of Twilight Zone still exist out there, either partially running or fully running. Again, tremendous pinball machine. So on this COVID Thursday, we wish you happy travels in the Twilight Zone. And if you hear any noise in the background, both of my cats get quite excited when I do my podcast, and they try to play around to draw attention for me away from giving you my opinions. And the podcast today are dedicated to my two rescue cats because they're big Twilight Zone fans. Every time Rod comes on, both cats love black and white Twilight Zone. They don't like the second series of the 80s. They like the